Welcome to this video. Let's talk masculine feminine dynamics. Let's unpack this a little bit and let's speak to dating feminine men and what does that mean. I had a question from a follower and I'm going to read this out to you. I'm going to break this down a little bit, see if we can help her out and also just shed some insights, shed some light onto what can be a super complex topic. Okay, let's go ahead. Hi, I have a question. I'm not sure if you can help. I've been single for 13 years and have started dating again. I've been very independent, being a solo mum. I'm craving a masculine man, although the ones that I'm bringing in are quite feminine. Now note, before I continue reading what she's written to me, she's very aware. Let's continue. I understand that this is because I'm attracting that with my dominant masculine energy. How do I shift that? How do I embrace the feminine energy to attract the masculine that I'm craving? I don't want to play a damsel in distress because I'm not one. I get confused when the stereotypes that this culture has created of weak and dependent women. I'm happy to depend on a man, although I feel content in me and my connection to my higher self. Thanks. This is a great question. This is a really powerful question. So firstly, let's clear something up. Masculine, feminine, expressive energies reside within all of us, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, irrespective of your gender, male, female. These contrasted energies, I call this contrast dynamics, they reside within all of us. And it's part of the reality of duality that we live in and the law of polarity that we abide by as human beings in this reality. So it has to be understood that masculine, feminine energies are separate to gender and, big capital and here, capital A, capital N, capital D. And they are also in some capacity connected to our gender. Not completely, but in some way. Let me continue. I'm going to put that on pause for a moment. I'm going to come back to this question. So this woman is very aware that she's attracting the opposite of what she is. So we need both in any form of attraction dynamic. So when we're speaking about attracting people and keeping interest and novelty and curiosity in the relationship, we're talking about opposites. Now, similarity in a relationship is also necessary and healthy, but it has to be the right similarity. Similarity and sameness, so to speak, is necessary because it helps us feel safe. If we feel safe in a relationship, we tend to be more spacious within our psyches, within our hearts, within our bodies. Therefore, we can be creative in the relationship. We can be more open, vulnerable, trusting, honest, transparent, all these characteristics that are very attractive in relationships. But we need opposite energy, we need polarity for magnetism and attraction. We need that for passion, for intensity, because we need to experience intensity in relationship. It's when we experience too much of something in extreme ways over long periods of time that are unsustainable that it makes it unhealthy. So she's recognized that she's been alone for 13 years. So let's put some pieces of the puzzle together without over-assuming. She's been on her own, 13 years single. She's learned, she's cultivated an energy of being highly dependent on herself, being directed, being highly responsible, making decisions for who she is, for her own path, maybe being very quick in that decision making. She's learnt and cultivated ways of doing things and being in the world, her habit creation. Bringing another partner in can be difficult. It can be difficult to let go, to surrender. It can be difficult to see another way to be. It can be challenging, right? Being on your own for 13 years, surviving and even thriving on your own in a particular way. There can be a fear of letting that go. Now the reality is if she keeps stepping into what is known as masculine energy, I prefer to use the terms doing energy or go energy or even exclusive energy, okay? And so a doing energy or a going energy carries the characteristic of being more directed. Being very much decision orientated, being more exclusive in the leadership style. So it's not really, she's been 13 years on her own, she hasn't had to consider anyone else. Now, when you take cultural conditioning, biological conditioning, the development of language, the expansion of consciousness, the development of the prefrontal cortex, the development of advanced and more complex societies and culture, these energies sometimes can get convoluted and diluted. Now what that means as well is when we look at our society today, our society as a collective values highly that masculine energy. And so if we continue to bring more and more of that in the world because it's reinforced positively, and quote unquote feminine energy such as maybe softness or compassion, or that receiving energy, that flowing energy, that being energy isn't valued as much, it gets suppressed. And so all of a sudden now we're living in this polarized society. We're not living in a world where we have a balance of complementary and expressive energies. That's going to be difficult. We're all going to feel pressure. Now, when we look at the biological aspect of masculine and feminine energy, it's rooted somewhat in evolutionary theory. Okay, so let me explain this very briefly. When we look at how we've evolved over the last 500,000 to a couple of million years as humanoids, and now in our current form as Homo sapiens, we assume certain roles in terms of what we did in the outside world. That was largely predicated and based upon how we functioned, what our physical presence was, our hormonal profiling, the slight differences maybe in our brains, how we saw and view the world. So men were largely responsible for extending the perimeter, keeping the space that we occupied as humans safe. We were responsible for hard physical labor. With that came a conditioning into certain cultural characteristics. Now, I don't want to go too deep into this because it's honestly a video for another time, but just keep that in mind, that there is some element of masculine, feminine, contrast expressive energy that comes from, and is still relevant today to some extent, from our evolution, from our biology. Okay, so from our gender, although it's not exclusive to gender, that's very important because of the way that we've developed. So when we take that, there's some almost, and we don't like to hear this, but there's some form of unnatural expression when we see a man that carries too many feminine qualities, or we see a female that carries too many masculine qualities. That doesn't mean that a female should be a damsel in distress, that she should be codependent or highly dependent on a man. Definitely not. It's about taking that productive energy. Let me read here what she said. She's upset the stereotype that culture's created a weak and dependent woman. I agree. Women are not weak. Women are not dependent. We have to get out of these paradigms. Now she gets to choose how she wants to lead. See, one of the issues that we face, and why we struggle to balance our inner energies and have a greater balance and learn to express masculine when it's relevant, learn to express feminine when it's relevant. So learn to express that going energy, that go energy, because we're going to need that sometimes. We have to be directed. We have to take action fast. We can't necessarily consider others. We have to just consider ourselves and move forward. And sometimes there's an opportunity to be more inclusive in our decision making, in how we're functioning and relating in the world. And both are very valuable, and both hold a place in society, and both hold a place in our lives. So one of the fears that we hold is that if we give up this masculine energy that is firstly so popularized and so valued in society, are we going to be kicked out of the cool kids group? And the second part is, well, how do we function if that's really all we've known? And so there's sometimes a fear of that immense change because there's so much unknown that we're stepping into, but you don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And what that means is that you get the opportunity to choose, when do you want to be in that feminine energy? When do you want to step into that being energy, that flowing energy? That doesn't mean that you're fluid and that you're carefree and that you have no idea about what you're doing. It's more to the point that you get to choose, and you don't have to give up that masculine energy that has got you so far. But you get to choose when you use that. And that's a very real thing. We can let go of the fear that we have to be a certain way all of the time. That's extreme thinking, and that's a byproduct of our society. It's also a byproduct of survival. When we are engaged in a loop of extreme thinking, we're entrenched in fear and survival. We are very blessed that we live in a world where we do not have to be stuck in fear and survival 24/7, at least for so many of us. If you're watching this video, you would be that person. Now, that's not to say that you're not going to experience pain, you're not going to experience difficulty. But what this woman gets to do if she wants to attract a more masculine man, the polarity is she gets to step into, well, she gets to define what a masculine man is for her. And I think she's pretty clear, actually. And she then gets to be the opposite of that and complement that energy. And her dominant energy in relationship can be more feminine. If that feels more natural to her, and it may take some time, but that's what she's yearning for, that's what she's asking for. If that feels more natural to her, then she will begin to attract a man that can meet her in that polarity, in that contrast. And where they can meet on a very similar level is in the values. What are her non-negotiables in relationship? What does she value most? Does she value health and fitness most? Does she value nature? Does she value creativity? What does he value? Does he respect what she values? She gets to make those decisions. What type of relationship does she want to be in? A monogamous or non-monogamous relationship? She gets to choose. She gets to be very clear with what her values are. And we can meet on that sameness, that same plane of humanity and sharing each other's lives. So there's so much more to this. It's a very complex paradigm and subject matter, one that I've been studying for so long, and honestly, I still feel I know nothing about it. Not only do I live my own experiences through it, but I read and I educate myself, and there's so much to learn because there are so many inputs that feed into how we behave from a masculine, feminine paradigm. And I'm really moving away from using these terms masculine, feminine, because there is so much confusion in our society. I do prefer the terms go, do, exclusive, be, flow, inclusive, as an energetic, and as an energetic marker of these make up who we are. And we are most effective when we learn to use these energies in relevant circumstances and not overuse these types of expressions. Power and blessings to you people. I'll see you soon.